What's up, guys? Disney Plus just aired the first episode of the Loki series, and it looks like the Timekeepers are going to be playing a big role in the show. So in this video, I want to take a look at who the Timekeepers are and give you kind of a general idea of their powers, kind of their role in the Marvel Universe. And this is going to be based off their comic book origins. There are going to be some spoilers in this video, so if you haven't seen the first episode, you might want to wait. Okay, so just right off the bat, the biggest thing that I noticed with the Timekeepers, that Owen Wilson's character says that the Timekeepers created the TVA and all the employees. Now that is almost the exact opposite in the comics. But in comics, Timekeepers were actually created by the final director of the TVA, and he's named He Who Remains. The Timekeepers actually do look like space lizards, but He Who Remains made the Timekeepers as a gift for the next multiverse after this universe ends. And the Timekeepers would be born in this new universe, and they would bring with them their knowledge and experience from the previous universe. And this could be used to help jumpstart planets, technology, maybe give some advice on things to avoid, those type of things. However, the first bunch of Timekeepers that He Who Remains made, they were flawed. Instead of being born into the end of the current universe, the Timekeepers sought to go to the beginning of the universe. And they basically destroyed a bunch of planets, and these evil Timekeepers actually take on the name of the Time Twisters. So Timekeepers are mostly the good versions, and the Time Twisters are the evil versions. Luckily, Thor goes to the end point of the universe, talks with He Who Remains, and he warns him that these unborn Timekeepers will actually be evil. He Who Remains refuses to accept this, and he's going to allow these Timekeepers to be born. Well, at least until Thor asks He Who Remains to come with him so he doesn't get destroyed during the end of the universe. And this pretty small gesture of kindness makes the old man do a complete 180 on his decision. And with a tear in his eye, he murders 3 unborn space lizards. However, this is when things get a little confusing. So this doesn't actually kill the Time Twisters, but instead it creates a branch timeline where one timeline still has the Time Twisters and another has the Timekeepers. So both of these versions still exist at the same time, but in different branch universes. And the Time Twisters and the Timekeepers get stuck in this battle of altering time to ensure that they're the ones who actually end up being born in the new universe at the end of all things. But the biggest story that the Timekeepers are probably in during Marvel Comics is during the 12-issue run called Avengers Forever. And this story could actually tie into upcoming and past MCU projects. So, in Avengers Forever, the Timekeepers see that Earth and basically all of humanity pose a major threat to the universe and to the Timekeepers themselves. In fact, they see humanity and the human drive as the largest threat in the entire universe. And humanity becoming a threat all kind of stems from the creation of the Avengers. So in the story, the Timekeepers look into the future, and what they see is that humanity and humanity's drive to always be moving forward will get to the point where they start conquering different planets and eventually the whole universe. And they leave nothing but death and destruction in their wake. And the story actually gets pretty interesting because it's revealed that the Timekeepers have played a huge role in the timeline of the Avengers, dating all the way back to the second ever issue of the Avengers. And if anyone's ever read the 1964 Avengers #2, you'll see that the Avengers go against the Space Phantom. The Space Phantom was sent by the Timekeepers to kill off the Avengers. He fails, of course, but his next point is when it could possibly tie into the MCU. Because after the failure of the Space Phantom, the Timekeepers recruit Nathaniel Richards. Now, there's a few versions of Nathaniel Richards, and the version that the Timekeepers recruit, he goes by the name of Immortus. The better known version of Richards is actually Kang the Conqueror, who's set to be in Ant-Man 3. So the Timekeepers task Immortus to kill the Avengers, and in return they'll teach him a bunch of stuff about time and time travel, and he agrees, but he actually doesn't end up going through with it. Now, Immortus is basically the good version of Kang. Well, he's not good. He still did a lot of conquering in his day, and is typically up to some shady stuff, but he tries to avoid killing when he can. Immortus really sees himself more as a scholar, while Kang is, well, a conqueror. Instead of killing the Avengers, he tries to alter timelines so that they'll have more of a desired result. It's also important to note that Kang doesn't like Immortus, even though they're the same person. But an example of how Immortus kind of alters time to make sure things work out in his favor, or to make sure that the Avengers don't grow too powerful, is that the Timekeepers actually task him with killing the Scarlet Witch, because they see that Wanda is a Nexus being, and Wanda herself would become incredibly powerful. But more concerning is that if she had children, those children could pose a threat to all existence. So instead of killing her, Immortus orchestrates this pretty elaborate plan to have Wanda fall in love with Vision. And since Vision is basically just a robot, he can't knock up Wanda. So Immortus figures, hey, there's nothing to worry about. Obviously, we know that this is going to be a big fail, but at the end of the day, all this altering of time that Immortus is doing, it doesn't really slow down the Avengers. So the Timekeepers snag up all the Avengers and Immortus, and the Timekeepers tell the Avengers that humanity has to be stopped, and that they would flat out just kill all of humanity in all the timelines, but humanity plays too big of a role in the universe to eliminate all of them completely. And it kind of shows that the Timekeepers are actually powerful enough to eliminate the entire race in all the multiverse. Of course, the Avengers object to this, and they say they don't have the capabilities of conquering all the universe, since Earth is pretty underdeveloped and not a very technically advanced society. But even though they're not as developed as other planets, Earth is still home to some of the most powerful beings in the universe. And the Timekeepers even bring up how Earth has been able to defend itself against some of the biggest threats in the entire universe, like Galactus, who was stopped by the Fantastic Four. The Avengers stood against the Celestials, and they were even able to overcome Thanos with the Infinity Stones. Oh, and just as a note, the Infinity Stones, because they're brought up in the Loki series, saying that the TVA was even more powerful than all the stones. In comics, that's nowhere close to being the truth. In comics, if someone's wielding all the Infinity Stones, I mean, there's not a whole lot of people in the entire multiverse that could stand against that person. And definitely not the TVA. So I thought that point in the episode was a little strange. But back to the story. So the Timekeepers, seeing how powerful humanity is, their plan is, instead of destroying all of humanity, they're just going to destroy 42%. They're going to try to focus on the ones that end up taking over the universe. But killing off 42% of versions of humanity doesn't really sit well with the Avengers. So they of course fight back, which they stand very little chance against the Timekeepers. However, the tide of the battle really changes when King the Conqueror and his team show up. And they even point out that you don't need to be this afraid of the Timekeepers. They're not gods, and they're really not. They were made by a man, so they're not these all-powerful beings. And the Avengers, with King the Conqueror, are able to weaken the Timekeepers enough for King to get real gangster on them, shoots them so many times that they're basically wiped out of existence. And that's kind of the last time we see the Timekeepers. So before I wrap up this video, I just want to touch on some of the powers that the Timekeepers have. So obviously they have control over time, which they can even isolate certain people, so they can age someone to death. They can teleport themselves and others instantly from any point in time. They can create powerful energy shields. They can grant powers to other people, and with the help of the Forever Crystal, they can destroy entire realities from existence. So yeah, these space lizards are pretty OP. But I'm going to wrap up this video. Hope this gives you a better idea about the Timekeepers. If you guys like this video, make sure you slap that like button. Want to see more videos like this? Make sure you subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.